across, those 4 strap-on boosters separating. Now the single core stage continuing to power the Soyuz spacecraft into flight.
Copy.
Just before that, the launch escape tower was also jettisoned. Soyuz does maintain escape capability all the way to flight, though, with this stage able to use for a short time small boosters on the shroud itself, and then once the shroud detaches, able to use boosters on the spacecraft.
So the shroud jettison is confirmed. We have controlled descent.
And so we heard confirmation the launch shroud has jettisoned. In this animation, you can see the Soyuz spacecraft now exposed, continuing under the power of the second stage.
180 seconds into the flight, vehicle stabilization is performing nominally, and the crew is feeling well. Copy.
Second stage is going to continue to fire until 4 minutes and 37 seconds into flight, so about another minute and 20 seconds.
The second stage thrusters are functioning nominally. Everything is good on board.
Getting some views from the spacecraft itself as it continues downrange.
230 seconds. Vehicle stabilization is performing nominally. Everything is good on board.
At this point, the vehicle's already accelerated to just about 6,400 miles per hour, about 172 miles downrange from the Bajkonur Cosmodrome.
So 250 seconds into the flight. Pitch, yaw, and roll are nominal. Everything is good on board.
The pitch, yaw, and roll calls relating to the attitude or which way the vehicle is pointing. Hearing nominal is what we want to continue to hear on the way uphill. Everything continuing to perform normally with the Soyuz spacecraft and the rocket. 4 minutes and 40 seconds into flight.
Second stage separation is confirmed. We had Veta 2.
And so we heard good confirmation. Second stage is shut down and separated. You saw a piece fly off there. That was the lower skirt of the third stage. That was jettisoned right on time as it was supposed to.
Stabilization is performing nominally, and everything is good on board.
Soyuz now being propelled by the single engine of the third stage, providing about 67,000 pounds of thrust. This is going to continue to burn for about 4 minutes. It's going to shut down at 8 minutes and 46 seconds into flight.
Into the flight, the third stage is functioning nominally. Everything is good on the board. Copy, Kazakh. 350 seconds into the flight. Everything is nominal. Everything is good on board.
Three
380 seconds into the flight. Third stage thrusters are functioning nominally. The crew are feeling well. Copy, Kazakh. For 400 seconds into the flight, the vehicle is stable. Everything is good on board.
Now just about 2 minutes left, a little under 2 minutes of power on the third stage. Once it shuts down and separates just a few seconds later, the Soyuz spacecraft will be flying free, and a series of pre-programmed commands will execute, deploying a number of the appendages, the antennas, and the solar arrays needed to power the spacecraft on its way to the station. And a number of antennas will also deploy for communications and tracking, including those that will be responsible for communicating with the station as the Sojuz makes its automated rendezvous and docking. 7.5 minutes since launch. We have about a minute 20, a minute 30 left until the third stage has done its job, and we'll shut down and separate.
For 470 seconds. Third stage thrusters are functioning nominally.
Now in the final minute of powered flight with the Sojuz 2.1A booster. Coming up soon, we'll see third stage shutdown, separation.
190 seconds into the flight, vehicle stabilization is performing nominally, and everything is good on board.
We'll look to confirm good orbital insertion, essentially confirming that the spacecraft is in the intended altitude, in the intended orbit.
We are ready.
And now standing by for third stage separation, shutdown and separation.
520 seconds into the flight. Kazbeki. Orbit insertion is confirmed. Our congratulations, and now Moscow, MCC Moscow will talk to you. Kazbeki, Moscow. Kazbeki, Moscow.
And so we saw a good shutdown and separation of the third stage. Solar array has deployed, standing by for confirmation that all antennas have deployed.
Kazbeki, Moscow, how copy?
Kazbeki, ЦУПа Москвы, как нас слышно?
Kazbeki, MCC Moscow. This is Kazbek 2. I am ready to provide the data as per page 36. Kazbeki, how was the insertion? Moscow, how did you copy? I copy you loud and clear. Kazbek, how do you copy us? We copy you 5 by 5. I am ready to give you data as per page 36. Yes, we are standing by for the first measurement data from you. So we are receiving the image right now. Copy. So 10 seconds. Still RDR. Yes, RDR will be the dynamic ops command will be sent via CAREL, command radio link. So everything was on time. The RDR was on time. Yes, it is confirmed. Kazbeki, we're standing by for the first measurement from you. Here, the first measurement at the time 10:52:28. The SAP pressure 801, BO pressure 823, in PO pressure 891 in the instrument compartment, and I'm ready to give you the data from number 3. Go ahead. 17, 17.7, 18, 17.3, 19, 272, number 20, 0.8, 21, 1.2, 22, 325, 23, 324, 24, 16.9, 25, 17.5, 26, 272. Propellant is 880. Copy, Kazbek 2. Now please check the indicators. in work.
And so we're continuing to get a lot of comms between the Soyuz spacecraft and the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov. You're hearing them call Kazbek. That is the call sign for the Soyuz spacecraft with Commander Oleg Nowicki. We did hear a good confirmation of all solar arrays, both solar arrays and all of the appendages, so all of the antennas did deploy successfully. So we had a nominal flight on the way uphill, and we had a good orbital insertion. The initial orbit for the Soyuz spacecraft today is right at around 200 kilometers by 242 kilometers, or about 124 by 150 miles.
Get ready for the recording.
Значит, переключение секции баков КДУ.
So the KDU manifold switchover will be after the first burn maneuver.
Это по странице 42.
It's page 42. You have the times recorded.
Как приняли?
How copy? Copy. Page 42. 11:26:40 is the time. Yes, correct, of the switchover. And after the tank switchover by Karel, there will be selection of the first manifold depot. So, and what page of the procedure is that, Moscow? So we will send the command by command radio link. So the first manifold will be selected before the rendezvous. Copy.
Затем Т0.
Then T0.
Работа первого автономного сближения.
So the first automated rendezvous. And page 45, the IKV inhibit 12:10:00. It is also recorded. Copy. Page 45, 12:10:00. It's IKV inhibit. Yes, that's correct. Now, compass of the second orbit 12:14 is the time. Copy. 12:14 second compass. Yes, that's correct. From input 2, you will have to activate a display TV before the compass. So the command that should be sent is G3. Yes, display relay is G3 command. And you will have to activate the COM assets from the panel. Yes, that's correct.
Так, ну пока на этом все.
So that's all I had for now. Copy.
Ждем от вас 5-минутный замер.
And we're standing by to get the results of the 5-minute measurement.
Я Кazbek-2 готов передать 5-минутный замер.
This is Kazbek-2. I'm ready to report. And we're ready to copy. The sub pressure is.
Повторите.
Say again.
Давление ПО.
PO. Pressure 822.
ПО 890.
The pressure is
Давление
890.
ВСА повторите, пожалуйста.
How did you copy? Could you please repeat the sub pressure reading?
Давление ВСА 801.
801.
Верно?
This is the sub pressure. Is that correct?
Давление СА 800 ровно.
Принято.
The sub pressure is 800. Copy. 800.
Казбек, это по Москве.
Kazbek, this is Moscow.
Вам для информации. Корабль выведен
For your
на
information,
спутника Земли.
the
Элементы
vehicle was
конструкции раскрыты.
inserted into the orbit
Разрешаю
as
вам действия
an
в рамке.
artificial
Ослабить
satellite.
ремень подтяга оболочки
The
скафандра,
structure
ослабить
is
шлем и
deployed. If
ослабить
you are going
сетевой
to
ремень.
open the
А также
pressure helmet,
отключить
release
термодатчики.
shoulder straps, and you can also deactivate the thermal control sensors. Copy pressure helmets to open
Параметр орбиты
and
номинальный.
we're going to release the straps and deactivate the thermal control sensors. The vehicle insertion complete. And guys, this is Soloviev. How do you read me? Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the successful vehicle orbital insertion. All the telemetry parameters are nominal, and other than that, everything is fine. So you're going to proceed with all the work that you have to do. Copy all. It's in work. This is Kazbek 1. Thermal control sensor deactivated, and helmets are now open. Copy.
Казбек, текущий сеанс
Kazbek,
заканчивается 11:03.
current compass will be over at 11:03. Copy. 11:03.
All right, so we've been hearing a lot of chatter between the Sojuz MS-18 spacecraft and the Russian Mission Control Center in Koryov. Again, the crew safely on orbit. The Sojuz spacecraft deployed all of its solar arrays and antennas following a flawless flight uphill. We do have a little bit of time. We should be getting some launch replays pretty soon. So in the meantime, we'll take some more Ask NASA questions. This first one's asking, how long are these astronauts going to stay on board the International Space Station? Well, most flights typically last about 6 months. As of right now, these three currently plan to stay about 6 months, a little more than 6 months on board the International Space Station, and that's a typical stay. The spacecraft itself has a on-orbit lifetime of about 200 days. So that's typically a max that a crew will stay on board the International Space Station. Obviously, you have the capability to sometimes swap seats, depending on how the flights downhill or down the schedule take place. But for right now, these crew members are scheduled to spend about 6 months on board the station. This next question asks, why does the Dragon journey take more time than the Soyuz? That's a great question. And a lot of it comes down to the difficulties that come with orbital mechanics. You have to launch at very precise times to make journeys like the one we're seeing today. And it's only been possible through years of evolution and a lot of lessons learned on behalf of the Russian rocket scientists and the flight planners. Typically, for many years, the Soyuz took about 2 days to arrive at the International Space Station, and if they have any issues with any of their burns or their engine firings on the way to the space station today, they would default into what is a 34-orbit rendezvous, which takes about 2 days to get there. So it really just comes down to really understanding the capabilities of the spacecraft, and once you get that, you can try to narrow down. There are also a lot of other things that come into play when you plot out how long it's going to take you to get there. Typically, the shortest that a Dragon spacecraft will be able to make it to the space station is going to be about 6 to 8 hours right now, but again, has to be at a very specific time with the space station at a very specific place. And if it's any longer than that, we'll typically extend that out just to make sure that the crew has time to sleep, and we're not trying to keep them up for 12 to 14 hours straight before they try to dock a spacecraft to the space station. All right, this next one asks, how do you make oxygen on the space station? That's a great question. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, that we're able to recycle a lot of the life support systems. We make oxygen through a process called electrolysis, and that's where you basically take a water molecule and you split it. You use electricity and you separate it into its parts. Water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. And you can either take that excess hydrogen and vent it off board, or you can put it through a different process. We have a technology demonstration on board called Zabierze, which takes the excess hydrogen from when we make oxygen by separating the water molecules, and you combine it with CO2, carbon dioxide, that gets scrubbed out of the air that the astronauts are exhaling. And if you take that excess hydrogen and combine it with CO2, you can make more H2O. And so the goal is to eventually get to a point where you have what's called a closed-loop life support system, where you're able to just kind of constantly cycle through all of your breathing gases, all of your water that you're launching, so you don't have to launch a bunch of reserves. We're still perfecting a lot of those technologies. That's really why the International Space Station is so important, because we can do that just 250 miles above our heads and really make sure that we understand those technologies very well before we start sending crew members to the moon and eventually onto Mars, where when you're going to Mars, you're talking about a 3-year round trip, and you have to make absolute sure that all of those systems are going to work. Our next question asks, which docking port on the space station are they going to dock to? They are headed for the Rakiety module. It's also known as Mini Research Module number 1, and it's on the Earth-facing side of the Zarya, the functional cargo block module on the Russian segment. And that's the only one open on the space station right now. You can see what it's going to look like a little bit later this morning. The Sojuz MS-18 with the arrow there. It's not there yet, but that's what it's going to look like, and that's the rakiety port that you can see it attached to. Our next question comes from Shane. I want to know, how fast are they traveling roughly right now? So right now they're traveling at about 17,000 miles an hour, a little bit over, but they're essentially going orbital velocity. So at the altitude they're at, they'll start out at about 16,700 miles an hour or so, and then they'll continue to increase their speed through a series of what's called delta velocity burns. By increasing their speed, they're able to raise their orbit until they're roughly on the exact same orbital height and trajectory as the International Space Station, which itself is about 260 miles over the Earth right now. By that point, they'll be traveling closer to about 17,500 miles an hour. Our next question is, who will then be the next ISS commander? Who's the next space station commander? That's a great question. So right now on board the space station, it's Sergei Rizhikov. He's actually going to hand off command to Shannon Walker, one of the Crew 1 astronauts, just about a week from now, just before he comes home, along with Sergei Kuchverkov and Kate Rubins. And so he's going to be handing off to Shannon Walker. She's on the right side of this picture in the front row, and she'll be the commander for a couple of days until the Crew 2 mission launches to the space station, at which point she will be handing off to Aki Hoshide from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and then he'll be the commander for several months during Expedition 65. And then towards the end of that flight, he'll hand off to Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, who will be the commander for a couple of weeks at the very end of their mission. All right, our next question asked, why do Russian rockets launch from Kazakhstan? That's a great question, and it goes back to the very beginning of the Russian space program, the very early days when the space program was starting up. I'm going to cut that off, and we are going to some launch replays now.
Хорошо. Хорошо.